Whether you're a new player or an experienced player, I think we can all agree that on many an occasion, Football Manager can be a pretty hard game, and that isn't helped when people are making the same mistakes over and over again without realising. So in today's video, I'll be covering 5 of the most common mistakes, even from experienced players, and talking about ways to avoid them and counteract them and hopefully improve your Football Manager games. Let's run the intro and get right into it. Hello everyone, Jake here for FMSCOUT and welcome to another Football Manager video where, as I mentioned, we're going to be covering some of the most common mistakes people are making in Football Manager. Whether it's something you're doing too much of in your game or something you're not doing enough of, we're going to cover it here. But what I want you guys to do before we get into it is in the comments below, let me know what you find is the most common Football Manager mistake that you see out there, and hopefully we'll have a list of things in the comments alongside this video. And you know, that'd be great for people to check out and learn a bit more. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. But with that being said, let's go and take a look at the first of our 5 points that we'll be looking at today. So the first point I'm going to cover is something that I've spoke about a few times, particularly on FM21, but I haven't spoke about it enough, or at least in detail, in FM22, and that is why you shouldn't trust the star ratings that you see around your players. I've noticed nowadays there's a few more people that are starting to not fully trust these ratings, but I know myself, when I first started playing Football Manager, I thought these were the be-all and end-alls of the squad. My whole aim was to try and get a 5-star player in every position, but it just didn't seem possible. But you probably shouldn't put all of your faith in these star ratings because they're not always accurate. I'm not saying they're completely plucked from thin air, of course. There's obviously a reason why the likes of Torres, Fernandes, Kessie, Pino, Onana, Lamptey are some of the best players at the club, and that's because they're the players of most quality. But these star ratings aren't super effective at reflecting that, and often they can be super misleading. But before I talk about why, if you are wondering how we've got Bruno Fernandes on a Villarreal team in 2023 alongside many other stars, you can find out by watching a series on my channel, which is linked in the description. We just hit 8,000 subscribers over there, and we're trying to get to 10,000 before the start of FM23. So if you want to check that out, I greatly appreciate it. That would be absolutely awesome. But back to the star ratings, and we're going to use Bruno Fernandes as an example here. Obviously, in this Villarreal side, he is one of the best players that we have. I wanted him to play in this midfield role, but when I first signed him, his best role in the midfield was classed as 3.5 stars. Now you can see it's 4.5 stars, but Bruno Fernandes hasn't developed over that time. But how has his ability rating shifted so much, and why shouldn't we trust it? Well, these star rating systems reflect a report that one of your coaches has made, and obviously your coach's judgment is going to affect this. So in this example here, we can see this report has came from Imanol Idikes, who is apparently our assistant manager. If we go and have a look at him, he has a 13 for judging player ability and 14 for judging player potential. So maybe he's not given us the most accurate reflection of these players because he hasn't got a 20 rating in that area. But there's also a few other things to consider. First of all, this star rating is so much dependent on form, it's unbelievable. If you have a player who's playing well, you'll see their star rating flying through the roof all of a sudden, and the same goes if a player starts playing badly, you will see their rating drop. Now, another thing to note about these star ratings, and the reason it's so impossible to get a team of full 5-star rated players, is because the star ratings are based on the people in your team and the league that you're in. So here, Pau Torres is a 4.5 star player, and in comparison to him, Pierre Kalulu is only a 2.5 star player. If you put Pierre Kalulu in Charlton's team or whatever it is, he is of course going to look like a 5-star amazing player for their side, but because here he's being compared to some world-class players, he doesn't look as good. So you shouldn't always rely on these. What should you do? Well, use attributes. The attributes are there for a reason, 1 to 20. If you are using Pau Torres as a central defender on defend, you check out the attributes that are highlighted for that role to see if he'd be good at the job, and if you wanted to actually compare him to another player in the squad, for example Pierre Kalulu, you can actually go to attributes and we can see in which areas Pau Torres is better and which areas Pierre Kalulu is better, and you can make your own judgments on who are the important players in your side from that. For the next point, I'm hopping over to this lead save, which is part of a 5-season rebuild that we're going to be doing on my channel soon. We're about a few seasons in here, and what I want to talk about is the effect that the data hub can actually have on your team. Now, I know that the data hub isn't used by absolutely everyone, and to be honest, I don't use half the features in there, but one thing that I found that I think you really shouldn't ignore, and the game kind of hides a bit too deep for my liking, is when you go to the matches, last 5 matches section, you can see a load of things about your team and how they performed across the last 5 matches. which is great. But the thing that I really love, and the thing that I think people should pay a lot of attention to, is this right hand side here, which your analysts provide a report on, and it tells you about the negative sides of your team's game. But not only that, it gives you quick fixes to try and fix the issue. Now, of course, you don't have to do these instructions that the game is suggesting, but if we do have a look at some of our biggest problems this season, we can see here that in the last 5 games, 8 of the 11 goals we've conceded have been scored from positions close to the penalty spot. And later on, you'll see about opposition touches in the area. We'll see touches to goal ratio, all that kind of stuff. And it allows you to see if there's any common patterns throughout your squad. For example here, I can see that it's trying to get me to force the opposition outside the box more often, and also they want to do it here to prevent chances at goal. Now, you don't have to treat this as gospel. You don't have to completely change your tactical style because they say so, but it might be worth hitting the tick button on a couple of these if you agree with them and seeing if it changes the way that your team performs in the next few games. Maybe you'll come back after another 5 matches and find that that issue is cleared up. There might now be a new issue, but it will allow you to adapt your tactic quite easily without having to get too bogged down in all the data. You can just come across to this section, they give you a few examples of issues that are wrong with your team, and you can fix it just like that. Okay, I'm now going to cover 2 points together in one. These are a bit more abstract concepts as opposed to just going in a thing and pressing a button. And what I'm going to be talking about here is player power and selling people in your squad that you feel have no part in your team anymore. We're going to start off with the transfer side of things, and I'm going to be talking about letting go of your players and why sometimes you should just give up and take whatever deal comes your way. I know that sounds stupid because of course we all want to get the best valuation from our players. We all want to sell Ross Barkley for his fee of 9.6 million. We all want to sell Marcus Alonso for 23 million pounds because his values say so, right? It's not always like that, particularly in the first season. Of course, after you've done 1 season in Football Manager, based on their play time and their contract situation, their value will start to change and alter, and depending on how they play too, you get a lot more interest. But usually when you start up a save in that first season, it's a lot harder to sell players. Another reason for this is the fact that all the other clubs in the world have done their real life transfer business and therefore have less money and less need to fix certain positions, and it can be hard to get rid of people. But what I'm going to be talking about today is not holding out for the value. Sometimes you should just bite the bullet and sell a player, even if it's for a value nowhere near what you're after. Now, what I will always say is if you really want a player gone from your team, whether it be because they've got extortionate wages or they're expecting to be a bigger player than you're planning on using them on, they don't fit in your tactical setup, just get rid, because honestly, the effect that they can have on squad dynamics, and this is going to tie into part 2, which is player power, is massive. Over the last few years, I genuinely think dynamics have been up there as nearly as important as your tactic and the transfers that you make in and out of your team, because bad dynamics compared to good dynamics can make a massive difference in your side. It's like using a completely different team and all of a sudden they'll start playing terribly if a few key players get upset. We all know that, but one of the best ways to avoid it is just plan ahead of your squad. Think about how often Alonso's actually going to play this season. If he's not going to play too much, obviously you're then going to offer him out, which a lot of you do, but then a lot of people will say, well, I didn't get an offer for 20 million, so I didn't think it was worth selling him. Honestly, I would rather sell this guy for 5 million pounds than hold out for 20, because I know for a fact if I don't sell this guy, he's going to have bad dynamics at the club. It's going to drag the team down. If you have to take a real small fee, sometimes you just have to do it to get rid of a potentially disruptive player at your club. I've even had it in the past where I've offered a player out for completely free because I just don't want them around affecting the team dynamics. Of course, you can pop them in your under 23s and your under 18s team, but at that point I'd say, wouldn't you just rather take £1 million from than have a player you'll never use in your under 18s, under 23s? I think it's always worth, if you need to, just get rid of a player, cut your ties, and don't worry about getting a full valuation for a player where realistically that valuation is completely false. Tying into player power and dynamics, I want to talk about contract situations as well. I always think it's best to plan 2, maybe even 3 years ahead in your contracts, because before you know it, you'll get to a position, for example here, let's say we wanted to keep Rudiger. We know in real life that Chelsea missed the opportunity to hand him the deal that he wanted and he left the club. Now, if that's what you want, then great. But I do think once you get to this point where there's only a year on a player's deal, you're already running a horrible risk, because before you know it, that player's going to come forward and say, look, I want to explore my options at the end of my contract, and it'll be impossible to give them a new deal. That's why I always like to stay 2 or 3 years ahead. If we're talking contract renewals, I'm here in 2024. Even though we're in 2021, I'm planning, okay, which of these guys should we get a new deal for now? Who should we wait on? Who are we happy to let their contract run down? So I would always say, plan ahead with your squads, plan ahead with your contracts, and always think about the potential impact it could have on your team dynamics. But on to point number 5, and this is something that I only found out the other day a lot of people don't do, and I didn't know how. I thought this is something that everybody does in Football Manager. It's shortlisting. I was very surprised to find out people don't use shortlists and go onto this scouted section and sort by best scout reports, which is a great area for the game to use, don't get me wrong. But even just looking at this here, it can be really overwhelming looking at the amount of players available, and half these players wouldn't even join my squad anyway, so I wouldn't really be thinking about them. But this is where shortlists come in. You can make 10 shortlists if you want to, looking at left backs, right backs, strikers, players under the age of 21, end of contract shortlists. You can see here, you can have as many shortlists as you like. I've got one for my main players and one for youth players currently. These are players that have came through as regens and I'm looking at as potential signings depending on how their contract situation goes. But shortlists are so good because I've now narrowed down that whole scouted section to, let's say, 50 players here roughly, who I think could potentially be good players for our squad. And then you can sort by position and you can look at right backs and have a short list of right backs, and that just means that you can always keep track of these players. You can see where they're at, see where their values are at. You can easily scout them all again if you need to see how things have developed over a course of a season. Going back to what I said in the contract situation earlier about squad planning and planning ahead of your squad, a shortlist can sometimes be so good for that, because I might have zero intention here of signing any of these guys because I've got a great right back in Tariq Lamptey, Kalulu, Rosas and Francis. I need no other right wing back in my squad. But because of this shortlist, what I know is if Lamptey was to leave, I wouldn't be finding myself panicking trying to find someone to fit the role, because easily I can come to here and see 4 other players that I have deemed good enough at one point to play for the squad. I can reevaluate the players in this list, I can continuously add to it, and it means you've always got a backup. I don't have to scout new people, I don't have to look through 100 options on a transfer market. I've got some players here who I know I like and I can look through them and figure out who I want. I don't understand why anyone wouldn't use shortlists. If you are one of those people like me who uses shortlists and you're thinking, Jake, this is super obvious, why are you telling me this? Lucky you, you're fine, but trust me, I found out the other day, so many people aren't using these, and I think it's a massive miss not to use your shortlist system and even make 10, 20 shortlists, whatever you want, however you like to play the game, and you can just keep track of all the players that could potentially be of use to your club. So there we go, guys. We have covered 5 of the most common Football Manager mistakes, which cover everything from fixing your tactic through the data hub to making sure players don't get angry as they're running out of contract and making sure you've got plenty of players to sign on your shortlist. This will help your game massively if you apply all 5 of these. If you're someone who already does, awesome. Let me know in the comments that, Jake, I do all 5 of these things. I'm a great Football Manager player. You'll get a gold star from us here at FM Scout. But don't forget to let us know in the comments your most common Football Manager mistake, either something that you do or you know many other people do. And with that, we'll have a big list of all the mistakes to avoid in FM. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Don't forget to like the video and I'll see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.